Hello Year 9, I hope you are all safe and well. Here is a little introductory video to the work that we're doing on R087, which is the unit about interactive multimedia products. We're going to just look at the first part of LO1 as it seems to be confusing for a few of you. And this for the moment is the only bit that you need to write about. Don't worry about the second part of LO1. You're going to need to know this stuff for when you do the unit for real. And obviously we're doing some prep work at the moment. So LO1, this is the first part of LO1, Learning Outcome 1. So these are the these two bullet points are the things that I need you to know about and be able to write about. So you must know where different interactive multimedia products are used and what they're for, their purpose, and the key elements to consider when designing. So in both of these cases, you need to be able to do them yourself. So you need to be able to think about where one might be used and how you would design it, and also be able to talk about existing multimedia products and recognize where these design elements are used in those. So we're going to look at these points one at a time. If I were you, I would just pause the video at any point that you need to, if you need to recap anything. So I'm going to put quite a lot of spoken information in there, knowing that you're going to be able to do that. So first of all, let's have a think about what these two words mean. What does interactive mean? What does multimedia mean? You might just want to have a little think about what you think those two words mean. So obviously we're thinking about this in a computing or an IT context. So interactive, it's a very simple idea when the user causes an action by the computer so that different data is displayed. So in other words, with multimedia, what we're thinking about is when the user clicks on a play button or starts playing a video, hovers over a hyperlink, they might click a button on a screen or a menu item, and as a result, something happens. So in other words, it's not like a passive presentation or something. You can, as a user, interact with it to make something happen. So multimedia, probably got some understanding of what that word means. Multi, so it's a combination, more than one type of several media. And by media, we're talking about things like written text, sound, so speech, musical sound effects, images, and video. And it's all combined into the same product. So it may not be that all four of those things are there, but it means that at least two of them are. So if we're talking about an interactive multimedia product, we're talking about something that combines elements of these things. You can interact, the user can interact with it, and they would expect to see at least two of these elements. So hopefully that gives some idea of what interactive and multimedia means. So we now need to really have a think about how it's used and the properties of interactive multimedia products. So let's first of all just think about where IMPs, and that's what I'm going to call them from this point, are used and what their purpose is. So in the specification, I've taken this straight from the syllabus. It gives four distinct examples. Okay, websites, information kiosks, mobile phone apps, e-learning products. There are actually a wide range of IMPs beyond these four. So you might think about websites, so those might be things like portfolio. So like an artist might have a website that acts to show as a portfolio for their work. City guides, so big cities might have interactive websites that act as a guide for you to plan a visit there. Kiosks might be something you've come across. So you go into a fast food restaurant like McDonald's, and you can use a kiosk to order and select your food. Railway stations might enable customers to buy travel tickets from there. So they're like standalone kiosks that don't have a person manning them. The user can just interact with them and do what they need to do. Mobile apps, you all know what mobile apps means, and games are included in there, but we're not really in this unit thinking about games. We're thinking about mobile apps that will actually fulfill a useful function, so maybe a navigation app or something like that. E-learning. So e-learning might mean anything educational or for training. So adults might make use of e-learning products as well. So quizzes, interactive demos of things, programs that teach you something. And then the last thing is things like digital magazines. So a magazine that's like you can, for tablets and phones, actually buy magazines, which are the same as a shop version, a paper version of magazines, but you can interact with them. You can look at the pictures, you can turn the pages. Some of the brochures might even contain videos and things that you can access as well. So if you're looking to book a holiday, you might look at an electronic brochure. So these are the things, if you just flip back to here a minute, these are the main 4 groups. And on here, I've got some examples of where you might see each one of these things used. And we're just going to have a look at some really specific examples just before we move on to the next bullet point. So if you are already okay with what you think multimedia products are and the uses of them, you might want to fast forward. But if we look at some examples here. So here's a website. This is from Jaguar's website, and it's an extremely interactive website. You can see it's multimedia because it does contain photos, text, animation. There's video in there as well. This actually allows you to choose and build and buy your own Jaguar, so you can kind of specify the parts that you want to put together, the engine, the type of engine that you want, the car model that you want, and the user can literally interact with the site to buy it. You've got to have the money, obviously, but they will allow you to order the product. It's even got live help, so you can have a conversation with a Jaguar salesperson if you need to. So a lot of websites offer the user the ability to buy and even customize and choose the product that they want to buy. Mobile apps we were just talking about, we're thinking about apps rather than games. So that might include things like a medical app here, which allows you to even have a face-to-face conversation with a consultant, doctor, and you can see this makes use of video in order to do that. And there's a list there of different stuff that you might want to be able to speak to, messages that you need to be able to send to a particular doctor. Here is a train travel app, very useful. Again, it allows you to buy tickets, but also choose the time you wish to travel, the destination that you're going to, where you're traveling from. Very simple, but it does combine a range of media and allows you to do useful things. So again, not a game, but a multimedia application. Museum exhibits. If any of you have visited a museum or a gallery in the last couple of years, you've probably seen in a lot of museums they now have digital or interactive exhibits. So this is a gallery here, and you can see that the young visitor there that's looking at this particular exhibit, you can see that actually there's a camera there, and it's getting her to make a face, and now and the exhibit actually looks to try and produce a similar version of what's in the actual piece of art. So obviously this makes museums a lot more interesting and engaging for young people, but also allows them to give a lot more information and make it a lot more atmospheric. So often exhibits will have things like speech, sound effects, music, or presentations, videos, which really make for an engrossing experience for all visitors to the museum. Tourism maps. Lots of big cities now have maps in a range of places. So here's even an example of Coventry. Is a shopping centre which often have them. So you can look for particular places, look for particular locations. You can give you directions, transport information. So extremely useful for visitors to a place to be able to find where they're going and to look for specific places. This is for visitor information in a specific hospital. Hospitals are very big places, so if you notice here, I don't know how clearly you can see it, but the different sections and departments of a hospital, and it provides a floor map, the name of rooms and locations. So if you're visiting somebody or you've got an appointment with a particular doctor or consultant, you know where to go. E-learning, training and education. So these might be used for adults as well as for students, but here, for instance, is like a crossword that's actually got some clues as well, and you can see some of them are picture clues. That one's an audio clue, and you can sort of toggle, you can click solve when you've done it, restart it if you're not sure, and uses speech, pictures, icons, all sorts of different things to enable you to interact with the quiz. Here's one that probably a lot of you are familiar with. This is My Maths, so a website that actually allows you to do maths online. You can choose, obviously, you've all used My Maths before, and you can choose the kind of sums that you do, and allows you to interact with the site in a lot of different ways. So that might make use of speech, it might make use of video, images, obviously text and numbers as well, and you can make selections of the kind of sums and calculations that you want to do. So awful lot of use for e-learning training and education. When you learn to drive in a couple of years' time, often interactive training materials are very useful for that, because they allow you to kind of do quizzes on highway safety, spot the hazard activities, all kinds of applications for interactive multimedia in e-learning training and education. And in kiosks, we've already mentioned, kiosks are useful inside. A lot of the time it's fast food restaurants. This is obviously McDonald's, and it's an automated way to order and buy your food. So obviously it reduces queuing. It's very large, always a touchscreen interface with a payment interface as well. So you need it gives a variety of options for payments, and a menu system that allows you to access the different goods and services that they have on offer. So you might see kiosks in fast food restaurants, but you might also see them in train stations or cinemas, where you can buy tickets without actually having to queue up. Here, this is just a QR code. If you scan this, it will take you to a list I've put together of different interactive products that you can go and have a look at if you want to find out a little bit more. So you can pause the video and scan this with your phone. It works immediately from an iPhone. You might need an app if you are doing it on an Android device. So, second part of the video, we're going to look at the uses and properties of interactive multimedia products. So these are the things that you're going to need to consider when you're designing your own, and be able to recognize them in other professional products that you might see. So the color scheme, house style, layout, the GUI, which is a term that means graphical user interface, and something called accessibility. So again, we'll flip through these, and you can fast forward past any part of the video that you think you're already okay with. So color schemes and logos, obviously very, very straightforward. We're talking about how important it is perhaps to have a distinct color scheme and a clear color scheme recognizable throughout, and the use of logos so that you can recognize all the time that the product that you're using belongs to a certain organization. In this case, McDonald's, obviously, and you can see the color scheme is very recognizably McDonald's color scheme. The logo features prominently, so there's no doubt at all for any user that they're ordering a McDonald's. Should be obvious, but again, it just helps when you're using a piece of perhaps unfamiliar technology to feel secure that you know what you're doing. Here's another example. This is a slightly blurry image, but this is a London Underground map, as I'm sure you can see, and the colour scheme, extremely important that they use the same colour scheme that the map actually uses, because that's a very prominent part of that map, and it's something that travellers on the Underground will learn and recognise, and will be very important to them in terms of planning their journey. So colour schemes and logos are something that you need to think about, how you will feature them, what kind of colour scheme is appropriate, and how you'll make use of them. Now, tied into this is something called house style. Now, house style is not kind of a type of building. That's not what it means. House style is a set of rules, basically. And a company or organization might come up with a house style to determine how all the written and visual information about that business needs to look and be presented. Okay, so remember, in the multimedia products we've looked at, they cover quite a wide range of organizations, don't they? So we've talked about restaurants, shops, travel companies, hospitals. So any organization that uses multimedia will create a set of rules, and that means any document or presentation or website, whatever that they put out, will look a particular way, and you need to be able to come up with your own set of rules, but also again recognize when those rules might be used. So if that sounds a bit complicated, it isn't. Let's look at a couple of very simple examples. Here is one for I think it's a building company, and what they put together is a color scheme. And again, so it's telling you that these are the colors consistently that you'd expect to see throughout, different combinations of those colors and how they would work together. And then this isn't obviously the actual text they would use, but it tells you what the text would look like for a heading, perhaps a subheading, and then body text. And then in terms of icons, if they were doing like a mobile application or something, those again would be the colorings for the icons, and for a website, the style that they would want the buttons to look like. So it's actually very detailed. So you would expect for this company the website to look similar to an app, to look similar to presentations, to look similar to letterheads and written and printed documents. It's all a set of rules that ties the visual identity of a company together. So it's obvious that all of these publications belong to the same business. Very important for businesses and organizations in terms of establishing an identity. Here is a logo that you will recognize. It's Spotify, and Spotify have their own set of brand guidelines or house style, and these are the ways that they want their logo to be used. So they do even stipulate how you can use their logo and how you can't. So if you're a website and you are writing an article about Spotify and you're going to present that on the web, you would need to make sure that the logo is presented in a specific way. Okay, so you are going to need to be able to recognize how house style is used and where house style is used. That QR code is actually there to give you some more ideas about house style specifically. So if you're not sure about what house style is, have a little look at that QR code, and that should bring up a list of different examples of where house style occurs. So in terms of other features you'd expect to see in a multimedia presentation, layout and graphical user interface. Now, this is really important, because think about it, you could have anybody using your product if it's in a public place. So small children, elderly people, people who are comfortable with technology, people who aren't. So the layout and the interface is really important. It has to be clear, well designed. So if you can see on this one for ordering food, visually there's pictures of the food are given, so it's clear. Look at the way that the menu is laid out with options, one thing after another, obviously in a simple way. Big clear buttons. The visual design is there to be as easy to use as possible. If you start to navigate into somewhere, you need to be able to navigate back again. What happens if you click the wrong option? So for instance, McDonald's, here I've got a return button. So if you have made a mistake with your order, you can always go back to the previous stage. Here they've grouped the payment options into two distinct types: cash and vouchers, cards and mobile. So again, it makes it really easy to choose a method, and then it shows you visually what kind of methods you can use to pay. So makes it ever so clear. Anybody should be able to walk into a McDonald's and use the payment system without getting stuck or confused. So here's another example of good kind of UI design. Notice here there's the ability to add quantities to what you're doing. Now, if you make a mistake, what happens if you put 10 instead of 1? You need to be able to delete that easily. So there's ability to add or remove one at a time items from the list of things that you've chosen. If you're going to have the means to type, then typing is not ideal on a touch screen. So minimize the amount of typing that you're going to ask a user to do, because nobody likes typing on a touch screen, even a large touch screen. If you want to find out a little bit more about layout and GUI, again, here's another QR code, and this one takes you to a really interesting article that somebody's written, particularly about how McDonald's use design for their kiosks and the user interface that they've put together. So remember, GUI, graphical user interface. It's any interface where the user is mainly using buttons, icons, a touch screen, and menus rather than typing things. Okay, so that's layout and GUI. And then the last thing really that we need to talk about is accessibility. Now, not everybody who uses these products has the same set of needs. Some people may have sight issues, they may be colorblind, some people might be hard of hearing, they may even be physically disabled in a way that makes it difficult for them to interact with the screen or with buttons. So you have to think about accessibility. So everything from designing an application to a public kiosk, you would again need to think about the broad range of users that you'd have. So for instance, here are options available on a website to change the contrast. So do you want dark on white, or do you want light on dark? Do you want a large text size, or are you okay with a small one? So people who are older might need large print. It may be that some of the options, some people actually are blind and need options that they can actually hear. So you might want options read to you rather than just relying on visual cues. So what elements are there in the interactive multimedia product that you're doing to make sure it is accessible? The final QR code that I've put here is one which gives you access to a useful kind of little bit more information about accessibility and the kind of rules for accessibility that exist to make sure that companies make accessible websites and apps and interactive multimedia products. And that brings us to the end of our video, and hopefully you've got a little bit more of a clear idea now about the kind of things that you've got to cover. We've been through all of these elements, and you can always recap if you're not sure. You should already have a good set of notes on these, but I'm hoping now that having seen this, you'll be able to talk confidently about what IMPs are, how they are used, what they're for, and the elements you'd expect to see. So keep safe, keep well, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves. Hopefully I'll see you soon, and please message me if you need any more help with the work that we're doing on this unit. Okay, cheerio for now.